So we're going to talk about a lot today, but one thing you won't hear me slander is the image quality. You may not prefer Sony's colors, just like others may not prefer colors from other brands' processing, but I've yet to see a camera in the last 5 or 6 years that's not capable of producing an incredible image. Now, will you like using every camera, and does every camera make sense? That's the question at hand here. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Chris Hagan, a video producer and photographer in Portland, Oregon, and I finally got a chance to check out the Sony FX2, a very polarizing camera since the day it was announced, or leaked. My day job added one to the arsenal, and after shooting with it at CES, I had mixed feelings and decided to rent one for myself to explore further. And before we go any further, I gotta ask y'all one favor. Well, maybe a couple. If you own the FX2 or you've spent a significant amount of time using it, I'd love to know your thoughts, your favorite thing about the camera and why you bought it. I see a lot of people using them. I see great photos, I see great footage. So clearly they fill a need, but I just don't see it for the reasons we're about to talk about. I also want to know if the A7IV was available at the time you bought the FX2, would you have still gone for the FX2? And if you're currently considering picking up the FX2, well, I hope this can give you some valuable insight after using it for photo and video, especially compared to how I've used the A7IV for years. I'd call this kind of a hybrid first impressions video and review because I didn't have the camera for too long, but it also feels like a camera that I've used for years because, foreshadowing here, it feels very similar to the A7IV. So let's give some quick background because I need to remind myself that not everyone is a camera nerd like me. The FX2 was announced back in May 2025, and despite being a cinema camera, the specs and capability remained pretty much unchanged from the A7IV. The same faults, like a slower sensor readout, remained. From a photography perspective, it's basically the same, except the mechanical shutter tops out at 1/4000th of a second instead of 1/8000th on the A7IV, which actually takes a step in the wrong direction. But this isn't a hit piece. This video is me talking through my thoughts out loud and trying to figure out why this camera is the way it is, and again, get some insight from you. There are lots of positives to the FX2, just like there are lots of positives to the A7IV, because, you know, it's the same camera, just released more than 3 years apart. And to that end, since I only had the FX2 for a limited amount of time, some of these photos and video clips may be from the A7IV and they'll be labeled as such just to, you know, keep driving home examples of really good image quality and what I like about the camera. Spec-wise, 33 megapixels is a great sweet spot for resolution, enough room to comfortably crop, but not massive file sizes. I also don't have any complaints about dynamic range because it's everything I'd expect from what Sony's been doing for years now. I'm also a big fan of the image quality. Since I sold my FX3 in September, I've recorded all but one of my YouTube videos and a lot of the product B-roll on the A7IV, and I love the oversampled 4K footage. Image stabilization. I don't know the technical specs or the improvements that they made from the A7IV to the FX2, but I do think that is a step up. I've just noticed from handheld footage, whether I'm using 24-105, which does have image stabilization built into the lens, but also just using a prime 35 on the FX2. I think the image stabilization is noticeably better in a lot of situations. The autofocus is tremendous, and technically, it is better than the A7IV with Sony's AI technology that they've added to the processor over the last few years. Now, if you're a longtime user of the A7IV, will you notice it? I'm not sure. The A7IV autofocus was outstanding when it came out, and it still is. It's still kind of a step ahead of many cameras that have come out after the A7IV. So unless you're pushing the autofocus to its limits, maybe tracking a single subject in a crowd or a lot of fast movement, I just don't know if it's life-changing or worth updating to the FX2 from the A7IV. But the biggest change, the body, surely that's got to be an upgrade, right? Especially for video shooters. Well, not to me. I talked about it in my 3-year review of the A7IV that I posted about a year ago, but I never had much of an issue with overheating. I can count one time in 4+ years of using it that it did. It was at about the 35-minute mark recording one long clip. I stopped, we took a 10-minute break and got right back to it and recorded another 20 minutes or whatever we needed without any more overheating. But that was with the camera running on the regular internal battery. Anytime I've used a V-mount battery to supply power via USB-C and flip the screen open, zero issues overheating, including recording up to an hour to test that use case and only stopping the recording because I got bored. And I would argue that if you're using either of these cameras in a cinema capacity, you're doing so with some sort of camera rigging and probably external power. Seriously, if you're not using a V-mount battery when filming, it'll change your life. SmallRig has a ton of great options that I use all the time on Sony cameras, Nikon cameras, and anything I'm filming with. Now, why do I say all of that about overheating? Because the cinema body on the FX2 is a major selling point. You now have a fan to make sure the camera doesn't overheat as it cranks out the oversampled 4K image that gives us all the detail that we love in the footage. My issue is the new body that solved one problem created others from a photo and video standpoint. And after using the camera for a while, those problems kind of turned me off of it. And look, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that how I use the camera is the only way to use it, and I'm very aware that not every camera is for every person. That's why it's so nice that we have so many. That's also why I'm asking you to tell me the things I'm overlooking and the things I may not be appreciating in the FX2 like I should. But I'm also gonna back up my argument with some evidence and show you some of the things that just don't make sense to me. So let's start with the electronic viewfinder. I like the option, and for handheld footage, it's great to have another point of contact. My favorite part about filming with the A7S III was shooting while using the viewfinder. It helped me shoot some of the best stabilized sports video I've ever gotten. But while it does give you a better look at what you're filming than the LCD screen, it wasn't so good that it's something I'd go out of my way to use. I'll check focus with it occasionally, but I didn't feel like it offered me that much better of a look than what I got looking at the screen on the back of the camera. Not to mention the two issues with ergonomics. The first one is minor, but notable. When you're packing the camera, that viewfinder is very inconvenient. On the FX3, obviously you don't have one, so the camera packs easily with a flat back. And on the A7 IV and most mirrorless cameras, the viewfinder sits pretty flush with the back of the camera on top of the body. So you don't have that extra inch of space that you have to account for when you're, putting it in your bag. And if you've ever tried to cram all of your gear into one bag for a trip or even a single shoot locally, you know that every inch counts. And you're damn right, I found something to squeeze in my bag under that viewfinder because I need that space. But it's just kind of annoying. The bigger issue, however, is when you put a mic receiver on the hot shoe. It severely limits how you can move the viewfinder, and it just makes me think that the camera wasn't well thought out. That's kind of a harsh statement, but my issues with ergonomics don't stop there. I was even more turned off by the placement of the mic jack and the headphone jack. On the A7 IV, the mic jack is at the top of the left-hand side of the camera, so your audio cable from the receiver to the jack only needs to travel so far and shouldn't get in the way of anything. That's also where it is on the FX3. But for whatever reason, now the mic and headphone jacks are on the bottom left of the camera. If you're running an audio cable from the hot shoe or anywhere on top of the camera down to this jack, that's more ground to cover. And with the headphone jack where it is, if you use a right angle cable like I do for external power into the USB-C port, it could cover the headphone jack used to monitor audio one way, or the micro USB port for timecode or data transfer the other way. And when you've got an HDMI cable that's running to your monitor as well, there's just a lot of traffic over there that could be better mapped out. And it was a bit bothersome while filming. And I only bring this up because Sony had it right with every other camera, so why mess it up here? Sure, you could solve some of these problems with the XLR handle and running your audio into that instead of the camera body, but not everyone needs it or wants to film with that all the time, especially if you're running the camera on a gimbal. The next thing that got to me was a little bit of an annoyance that I had with the FX3 as well, but I could overlook it there because I wasn't really using that camera for photography like I think some people use the FX2. The joystick on the top of the camera. That joystick is how I prefer to change the focus area in photo and video mode, but especially for photos. But with your thumb needed to grip the back of the camera, the joystick is difficult to reach and operate while shooting. And I don't think I have small hands. I know this is a cinema body, but the camera as a whole still has a lot of hybrid features. And just for the sake of photography, where that joystick is makes the experience a little bit clunky. And all of these complaints led me to my big takeaway about where we're at in terms of these small cinema bodies. In my opinion, I think it is easier to make a photocentric body a video camera than it is to make a cinema body a hybrid camera. I'm glad Sony took their shot. Again, people are buying them and using them, so it clearly fills a need. But if you put a cage on the A7 IV, minus the fan and tally lights that you have on the FX2, I'd argue that it's ergonomically better for photo and video. I mean, I know the FX2 has, the video-centric buttons around the body, but in video mode on my A7 IV, I can map a lot of video functions to those custom buttons. Not to mention, with the memory recall dial up top, I can get to all my preset settings a lot faster than going through a menu. And the real elephant in the room is, why did the FX2 come out during the same calendar year as the A7 V, a camera that has a partially stacked sensor that yields better photo and video results? You've got a faster sensor readout to reduce the rolling shutter and warping effect, what appears to be much improved heat dissipation to prevent camera overheating, and the ability to shoot full frame 4K 60 and APS-C 4K 120. I'm not going to go any deeper than that now, this video is long enough, but if you just put a cage on the A7 V, I think you've got a better cinema camera there. So again, am I missing something here? Sony's autofocus and reliability and lens options and overall high quality make their cameras excellent choices for tons of creators, tons of hobbyists, tons of people in general, but the FX2 feels very out of place, especially when if you made it as a cinema-bodied version of the A7 V instead, it would be nearly perfect. But that might make it a little too good and keep you from buying an FX3 or an FX3 successor. Maybe that's Sony's problem. Anyway, that's enough yapping from me. Let me know what you think. I've never wanted to be so wrong about a camera. I just don't get it, and that bothers me. I'll see you next time.